Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Unnamed Sports Podcast. I'm Jake Brend. With me today is Aaron Price. Aaron, we're both sophomores, both tennis players here at Simpson. And I had a radio show last year and took the semester off, but decided to get back into it. And this time I wanted to do a sports show, so who else to bring in other than the expert, Aaron? Aaron, how are you?
Good, how are you doing? I'm no expert, but, I watch my fair share of sports, and I have hot takes, so.
Yeah, we spend, I guess not this year with the pandemic going on, but we spend the better part of last tennis season at Tyler's for about an hour and a half, just always arguing about sports. So why not start a podcast? And I promise that we will have a name for it eventually. But right now we're just going to stick with the Unnamed Sports Show. It'll probably end up being something Iowa State, but I'm an Iowa State fan. Aaron's an Iowa fan. That's one thing that we're opposite on, but other than that, we're both Cubs fans.
Yeah.
That's about the only similarities.
Yeah, I would agree. Iowa and Iowa State is one where we, butt heads the most.
Yeah, because I don't really care about the Cowboys-Bears that much.
I
cheer for the Bears just because of David Montgomery.
And then right now, though, Oklahoma City Thunder aren't really relevant, so you should have nothing against them at least.
Thunder and Nuggets actually used to be a decent rival.
I know, yeah.
Like back when Westbrook was in his MVP season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when the Thunder first started to become a team, the Nuggets weren't really that good. After they got rid of Melo, they just they had a bunch of decent players. Maybe sneak in the playoffs every once in a while.
I don't know how the Thunder are in the Northwest Division.
I don't know. Yeah, because they're South.
Yeah,
West.
they should be in like the team with or the division with the Texas teams.
Well, yeah, I think it was just because Seattle was up there, so
yeah,
they got all confused, but
anyways, that's about enough intros for us. Again, I'm Jake Brend. This is Aaron Price, and it is Wednesday, February 3rd, and we've got the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. I'm kind of surprised that we made it this far to the Super Bowl just with the pandemic and how many game shutdowns there was. I think it was like week 12 when the Broncos played without a quarterback and the Ravens had a game postponed. It kind of looked like the season might have been in jeopardy, but they got to the playoffs. They made it through the playoffs without any cancellations or postponements, and here we are with the Super Bowl. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 14-2, probably the worst 14-2 season of all time.
Yeah, they haven't been. I mean, they started off playing really well, and then these last few weeks, it's been like we're just gonna make it through, and just do just enough, to win games. But here they are.
Yeah, they really stumbled their way through the entire season. They picked up some really good wins. They beat the Buccaneers. They beat the Packers. Oh, no, they didn't play the Packers.
No, they did not play the Packers.
But they beat the Bills. They beat the Browns. They beat some good teams, but they didn't do any of it in convincing fashion. They also beat the Ravens, the Raiders when they were playing well, the Dolphins, Saints. So they picked up some really good wins and obviously had the best record in all of the NFL. They won their division for probably the, fourth or fifth consecutive year. Just another fantastic year under Andy Reid and probably NFL MVP runner-up Patrick Mahomes. Are they doing that award show on Saturday?
I'm not sure when they're doing it, but I would agree with the runner-up part of it.
It's probably going to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and deservingly so. I would say he had a really good year. His QB rating was off the charts. It's one of the best of all time, and I think he holds the record for one in the season at 122.3 or something. And I think he got to 120 this year, but yeah, hats off to him.
It's kind of a preview for what we're going to talk about later in the show, but Rodgers hasn't won enough MVPs just because of kind of voter fatigue, like Michael Jordan didn't win as many MVPs as he deserved because people got tired of voting for him. And we're going to talk about the same thing later with LeBron, but Rodgers has been the best quarterback in the league for probably the last 12 or 13 years for the most part. Peyton Manning had a couple better seasons, and Mahomes has been better of late. But Rodgers definitely deserved the MVP. But the Chiefs, back to them, are going to be taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who took probably one of the most different routes to the Super Bowl. They started off the season 4-0, but they picked up wins against the Lions, as we know, are awful. 2 wins against the Falcons, as we know, are awful. And they beat the Vikings, who pretty much underachieved. And then they end up losing 3 out of their next 4. And one of those games was a 38-3 loss to the Saints. So at that point, people were questioning if it was going to work. Is Tom Brady too old? are there too many holes in their offensive line and their secondary, which we'll get into. But after that loss to the Saints, they won 3 in a row, lost by a point to the Bears, and then won out until the regular season finale to finish at 11-5. They didn't win their division, but they got into the playoffs and beat the Washington football team in the opening round. It was kind of a really close game.
It was, yeah.
Heineke, the third stringer from Washington, nearly pulled off the upset. They then dominated the Saints. They only beat them by 10, but it was just like a pure domination. The game wasn't close at all. And then they beat the Packers in the NFC Championship up at Lambeau 31-26, and that brings them to the Super Bowl in Tom Brady's first season away from Bill Belichick. I don't know about you, but did you think Brady was going to succeed outside of New England?
If he got the weapons around him, I really think he was gonna do well. And I mean, they have a good offensive line, and then they got Mike Evans, Godwin, and then also got Antonio Brown week 8 or 9 or something.
Rob Gronkowski,
and so they have, and he really hasn't played well in those. I mean, he threw 3 or so picks against the Packers. I mean, he's just, when you give him his weapons around him, I mean, he's a really good quarterback, and I mean that's kind of everything but he's a game manager. He's a game manager. He's been doing this for a long time, so I mean, I can't say it shocks me because what else can you expect from him? I mean, he does this year in, year out, so I don't know.
And I've been saying it since this signing happened. I was actually in Florida when it happened, when he decided that he was going to Tampa Bay. It just made too much sense on paper because last year the Buccaneers went 9-7. They had one of the best defenses in the NFL, and they had these explosive weapons. It was Chris Godwin's breakout year, but Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions.
Yep.
And you say, well, you're bringing in a quarterback who's famous for not throwing interceptions, who's famous for not making mistakes, and you're pretty much just replacing that, and that had the makes of a really good team in front of him. And there were points during the season where it did not look like that at all, but they figured it out when it mattered most, and I think that's not really surprising when it comes to Tom Brady, someone who is very famous for kind of just sleeping through the regular season and then tearing up really good teams in the playoffs.
Yep.
And he hasn't torn anyone up in the playoffs, but he's done exactly what he needs to do, relied on his weapons. And then the defense, which we're going to talk about as our keys to the game, is really good. So do we want to get into the keys of the game?
Yep, let's do it.
Aaron, what's your first key to the game on Sunday?
I think the biggest key to the game for both teams, actually 2 separate keys. The Buccaneers, they have to control time of possession. They need to keep Mahomes off the field as much as they can. And, with the Chiefs, they just got to keep doing what they've doing, for the past 16 or 17 games. I mean, simple stuff, simple plays, don't flee away from, the stuff that's been working all year. But with the Buccaneers, I really think they got to get their running game going. You don't want to get in a shootout with the Chiefs because you know how that, will pan out.
Oh, yeah.
And then Tom Brady, he's got the 3 turnovers against the Packers. I don't know how that cut it, but that ain't going to cut it against the Chiefs.
And 2 of those turnovers were really bad.
Yeah.
There was one, I think it was a tip off of, it might have been Mike Evans.
Yep.
It was just a cross route.
And he was open. It should have went
off his hands and just was an interception. But the other 2 were just like, he threw a floater, just a pop fly that he should have just tried to throw away at all costs. But they ended up winning the game, so it doesn't matter. But before that, Tom was playing really well. He had that beautiful. I think it was the touchdown right before the half when they got the ball back with 6 seconds.
Yep, to Scotty Miller.
Yeah, to Scotty Miller, and he just launched a beauty to Scotty Miller.
That was perfect. I don't know what the Packers were doing there either. I mean,
no.
They were at like the 40-yard line, and there was like 6 or some seconds left, and they took a shot. For some reason, they pressed man. I mean, I don't know.
This is, as an Iowa State fan, I like to complain about press coverage defense prevent coverage defense because it allows for a lot of gaps in the defense at the sidelines. And Iowa State's pretty infamous for, at the end of halves, playing prevent and then letting a team get a field goal or a touchdown they shouldn't. But that touchdown to Scotty Miller was the exact reason you play prevent because it prevents the long touchdown at the end of a half. And that was honestly the first time I think I've ever seen something like that happen.
Yeah, I know. I was in complete shock when I saw that.
So my first key to the game, I know we talked about it a little bit pre-air, is can Tampa Bay contain Tyreek Hill? In the first matchup back in Week 12, Tyreek Hill had 269 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns, which that is a monster day by any stretch of the means. And Tampa Bay, if they do have one weakness, it's probably their secondary. They rank 20th in pass defense in the regular season. They give up 246 yards per game, and Mahomes throws for well over that each game. So if the Chiefs are going to win this game, it's going to be through the air downfield. They've got, obviously, Tyreek Hill, the best, or not the best, but maybe the best utilized wide receiver in football, just the way that he fits Andy Reid's system and the way that Mahomes is able just to hit him in stride. And they've got Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, arguably the best tight end with George Kittle and Darren Waller. Tampa Bay is going to have to step up in the secondary just to be able to have a chance in this game, because if they can't control downfield, the Chiefs could run them out of the water. My second key to the game is, can Leonard Fournette keep it up? He isn't exactly tearing it up as far as yards go, but he's played much better in the playoffs than he did in the regular season, which has helped Tampa be able to establish a little more of a run game. The Chiefs ranked 20th this year in the NFL in rushing defense, and Tampa Bay ran for just 30 yards in the first matchup. If they were to run for maybe 60 or 70 yards in that game, maybe they don't lose by 3, they win that. So if Fournette is able to keep up what he's doing a little bit, he has over 50 yards in each postseason game so far. I can see how many yards per carry he's averaging. He's averaging 6.8 yards per carry in the playoffs, so that's a really good number. He's just not getting the amount of carries. So if Fournette is able to do that and is able to establish a bit of a run game, it'll give Tom Brady some more freedom in the passing game. And then my final key to the game is, which Hall of Famer makes the most plays? That's really what it's going to come down to. I think that these rosters, I would give Kansas City the edge as far as roster goes, but I think as far as coaching, Bruce Arians is a very good coach. I think this is going to be a one-score game either way, and that's going to come down to either Patrick Mahomes, who I believe is the best quarterback in the league by a mile, but he does have turf toe right now. He's playing through an injury. He's had 3 straight deep playoff runs. So that most guys play 16 games a year. He played 19 last year, 18 the year before. This is his 19th. So Mahomes, he might be a little worn down. And can he keep it up for one more game? And then he's playing against Tom Brady, it speaks for itself. Say what you want if he's a game manager or not, but he's won 6 Super Bowls in his career across a really long period of time, almost 20 years. So it really comes down to which future Hall of Famer makes the most plays. And I think it really does come down to that. And just to add to that, Tampa Bay has the 5th best pass rush in the NFL. They had 23 sacks throughout the regular season. And Patrick Mahomes has proven time and time again that you cannot rush him or he'll make you pay downfield. So I think that type of chess match is going to be really what plays the game out, because Mahomes did take 22 sacks this year, which is more than he's taken in his career. He only took 8 his rookie year, which is
his first year that he started.
Yeah, his first year that he started, which is, that's
insane.
That's half a sack a game. That's crazy.
Yep.
So if the Buccaneers are able to get to him a little bit, could throw him off, maybe re-aggravate an injury. It could be a different game, but it'll be interesting to see which Hall of Famer makes the play, and it's going to be a lot like, it almost reminds me of, we weren't alive, but Magic Johnson playing MJ in the finals, where you've got the guy who's been doing it forever and
the guy that's up and coming.
Yeah.
Yep. And it really is it's going to be a legacy, make or breaker if you really think about it. Mahomes is going to win more Super Bowls. That's just how it's going to be. But if he beats Tom, the GOAT right now and you can make that argue. You can start arguing, okay, who is, the GOAT, quote unquote. But if Tom gets another one, it's like, man, can this guy even lose? So. Well,
yeah, that was my next talking point, is the legacy on the line in this game is a lot bigger than we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So last year with the 49ers, if they would have won, it'd be the 49ers won, Shanahan's proven, but there's no storyline that we're talking about in 20, 25 years.
Yep.
In this game, if Tom Brady wins his 7th Super Bowl, I don't really think you can argue
Yep.
goat status at that point. And then if Mahomes wins his second in a row, he easily cements himself as the best quarterback in the league, and he's on pace to be the best ever. What do you think about that?
I don't. That's just. I mean, it's crazy. I saw a stat the other day. It was like Tom Brady is more likely to make a Super Bowl than Steph Curry is to make a 3-pointer. Percentage-wise, Tom's like 10 for 21. He's played 21
That's
years.
crazy.
And Steph, that's like a 43%, 40-some percent. And Steph's like 40% in his career 3-point range. So it's like, yeah, Tom Brady's more likely to make a Super Bowl than Steph is to make a 3.
That's absolutely unreal.
Yep.
Brady's career, I think it's been underappreciated.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's been, there have been scandals.
Yeah.
You can't ignore
Say
that.
what you want, but, I mean.
But Matt Cass, everyone talks about how Brady's just a system quarterback and you could put anyone in there. But they went 17-0. Or no, they went 18-0 and then lost in the Super Bowl. So an 18-1 season in 2007, I think it was.
Yep.
Tom tore his ACL the next year, and Matt Castle went like 10-6. So just like that drop off itself shows that even though Tom he's more of a game manager than probably any other quarterback that'll be mentioned in the list of best ever. Joe Montana, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes. He's more of a game manager than them, but to act like he can't, or at least at one point couldn't throw the ball with any of those guys is kind of ridiculous.
Yep, it is. It's insane.
So I think the next thing we should talk about is who's your sleeper player to watch. One guy that doesn't get a lot of screen time or isn't talked about much, but could make a huge play in the game or have a huge impact.
Yeah, I think this one has to be, someone, you talk about Mike Evans, Tom Brady, on the Buccaneers, and then you talk about Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce on the Chiefs. And I think you mentioned it earlier. I think Leonard Fournette could be a sleeper in this game because I truly believe they're going to want to control the pace of the game. They're going to slow it down just a little bit, keep Mahomes off the field. And in order to do that, you have to be able to run the ball. And as of recently, Fournette's been getting all the carries, like you said, but the yards the yards per carry hasn't been showing. So I mean, you open up a few holes for him in there. He can break a run. He's still got it in him. So I can see him having a big game. So
he's got one of the weirdest careers.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he was a high draft pick. It was like what, 4th overall to Jacksonville, and he had 2-3 really good years, and last year he kind of dropped off.
Did he win the Heisman? Or was he runner?
No.
He was the favorite at one point, but didn't win it.
He was like the preseason guy. Like, this guy's gonna win the Heisman, and then someone else. I don't remember who won it that year. I'm not sure.
That might have been
Lamar Jackson, like kind of breaking out that year.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Leonard Fournette has had one of the most interesting careers because he wasn't even the number one back on Tampa coming into the year.
No.
Him and Ronald Jones still kind of split carries, but if anyone would have asked if Fournette would be a second back like in his 5th year in the league, I don't think anyone really would have believed that. And I'm going to go a different route. We've actually talked about him a little bit. I'm going to go with Scotty Miller. I think that he's one of those receivers that he's just one of Tom's guys. We saw that so many years with Danny Amendola in New England and, what's his name?
Edelman?
No, not Edelman, because Edelman was the star. There was just another guy that would always just break off for like one long touchdown each game. It might come to my head.
Yeah.
But Scotty Miller sounds like one of those guys that is just going to have like a 50, 60-yard game in the Super Bowl. And everyone's like, where did he come from? Well, he had a pretty good season. I can pull up his stats here. But he was easily, as far as receivers go, the Buccaneers' 3rd option this season. He had 501 yards on 53 targets, so not bad. He had 15.2, actually the highest average of yards per reception on the team, and he also added that in with 3 touchdowns. So I would say look for Scotty Miller because the Chiefs actually have a decently solid secondary.
Yeah, they do.
With Tyrann Mathieu, one of the best stories in the NFL.
Yep.
So if I had to imagine the Chiefs are going to have their way with either one of Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, like I could see Godwin having 120 yards and Evans having 0, or the other way around, and I would look for Scotty Miller to kind of fill the holes to even that out.
Yeah, and he was used right before Antonio Brown. They used him. He kind of broke out in that way. They used him a lot, and then obviously they got Antonio Brown, and his usage rate went a little down. But he's a talented player. He can create havoc in the slot. You can't press man him. Obviously, as we see in the Packers game. So, yeah, he can he can get a long run, when on a vertical route, and so, yeah, that's an interesting one.
And I think it's also worth mentioning that they are playing in Tampa Bay this Super Bowl, so familiar turf, familiar stands, just familiar everything. So I think it won't be that much of a difference.
No.
Just because it's the NFL and those guys are all professionals, but look for that to maybe play a little bit of a factor. But when was the last time we saw Patrick Mahomes throw the ball in warm weather?
I don't know. I think
that's going to be a huge advantage for the Chiefs.
I think it was when he played at Miami. I think they played at Miami, and I remember I watched that game. I don't remember why I was watching it, but Miami had a really good chance at winning that game, but Tua threw like 4 picks. I mean, he was just struggling. Or Tua threw 4 picks, and I think Mahomes threw 2 or 3 picks in that game as well. So I don't remember what they were doing to disrupt him, but I think that was the last time he was in hot weather.
Yeah. So when you're used to throwing it in as we know, the cold Midwest weather, when you get back down to the warm weather, it feels a lot easier off the arm, and
that can cause overthrows and
less,
just be antsy.
Yeah, less wind resistance. So that could play a factor, but also I think it's Patrick Mahomes we're talking about, not Jimmy Garoppolo.
Exactly.
So I don't think it'll be too much of a problem, but that is one key aspect of the game that might come up. So I think, do you have anything else to add just about the Super Bowl? I think we've kind of dug into it.
I will say this. The over-under is at 56, and I think it's going to be the under.
I think so, too.
Yep.
I think we've seen a lot. That's a really high number.
It is.
And the Chiefs destroyed the Bills last week, but before that, they'd scored 22 points, 23 points, 26, 32, 26. So I think we're going to see a game that's somewhere like in the 25 to 30
I think
range.
we're going to see more field goals, than we normally do, because Chiefs defense is actually not very good in the red zone, but I can just see them, this one game, making stops that they need to do.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games where if we weren't collegiate athletes or we were 21, we'd go with the under.
Yeah.
So do you want to give your game and score prediction along with Super Bowl MVP?
Yep. I'm going to go 23-17 Buccaneers with the Super Bowl MVP going to Tom Brady.
Yeah, I actually had Tampa Bay 34-28.
Okay.
With the MVP going to Tom Brady. I don't know what it is, but I just have this weird feeling that the Buccaneers are going to win. Well, it seems like so long ago because everything was normal when the last Super Bowl was played, but the Chiefs had to luck their way into that game. They were trailing, was it 14 in the fourth quarter?
And it's 2 comeback quarterbacks. It's 2 quarterbacks that play well when they're down.
Mm-hmm.
So the fourth quarter could get, that could be a back and forth quarter. But yeah, it's going to all depend on who's going to manage the game better.
Yeah, I'll make a bold prediction that who's ever leading in the fourth quarter loses the game.
Yep.
I think that whoever's trailing is going to come back and win.
Yep.
And I have a feeling that the Chiefs are going to be up maybe a touchdown going into the fourth quarter, and Brady.
I think we're going to see a little bit of a slow first half, and then second half it's going to pick up.
And Tom Brady is going to come back and win his 7th Super Bowl, which is
insane.
And his first away from Bill Belichick, which I'm sure if that happens, we'll have a lot of conversations about who is more responsible for the Patriots' success.
Now the whole thing is going to change.
Who's the halftime show?
Is it The Weeknd?
It is The Weeknd.
Yeah,
that's actually going to be a good one.
I know. I like them. They're not too bad. So
that'll be a lot better than what we've gotten in the past.
And do you know how many fans they're allowing there?
So they're allowing, I want to say, like 8,000 vaccinated healthcare workers.
Yeah. Okay, I did see that.
And then outside of that, maybe like 12,000 others.
Mm-hmm.
So better than nothing.
Yeah.
But when you're watching on TV, it doesn't really matter anymore if there's fans or not.
I'm used to it.
Especially in NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to do it for our Super Bowl talk. We're going to go to commercial / play one song to take a little bit of a break. Be back with some college basketball in Iowa. That was Feeling Lonely by Boy Pablo. Just a great song, as always. We listened to that during tennis. But we're back again with the Unnamed Sports Radio Show. I'm Jake Brend with Aaron Price, and we're going to be talking about college basketball in the state of Iowa, unfortunately, because we can just talk about Iowa State first, because there should be the least amount to talk about. They're awful. I think they moved to 2-10 yesterday, maybe 2-11. Their 2 wins are over Arkansas Pine Bluff and Jackson State. There's no direction on the team. Their prized recruit, Xavier Foster, didn't look that great when he played, and now he's out for the season with a foot injury.
Oh, okay. I saw he hasn't been playing. I wondered why.
Yeah, I think he was hurt all year. He should have just sat out the entire year. But they look really bad. They're not going to win a game the rest of the year.
Hey, Kansas State's bad too.
Their most winnable game was K-State at home, and they lost that.
Oh, I didn't know they played.
They'd have to win at K-State.
Yeah.
They might be able to beat TCU at home. That's about it.
They almost pulled one out against West Virginia.
Yeah, they actually did look not. They didn't look good last night, but they fought hard and they had a shot to win it. And typical Steve Prohm fashion, they had an awful inbounds play that ended in no basket. So I personally think that it's time for Steve Prohm to go, whether he takes the Wichita State job or whether they just fire him.
Yep.
I think it's time to move on because there's clearly no direction with the basketball program.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. 2 years ago, you won the Big 12 championship, and now you're the worst team. And
it's not even close.
Yeah, I know. So that's just disappointing. Yeah, that's obviously coming from somewhere within. You don't just go down that bad. Granted, all those guys from that team did go to the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Some maybe a little early, but
it was the mix of bad luck, but also not having a plan.
Yep.
So when constructing that team, Prohm knew that bearing an injury, he would have 1 year of Shayok. He knew that there was a very good chance he could only have 1 year of Horton Tucker. And he knew that there was a very good chance that he could only have one more year of Lindell Wigginton.
Mm-hmm.
If you would have asked anyone at the beginning of that year if you thought all three would be back, or if all three would leave, I'd say probably pretty unlikely. But they all three did leave.
Yep.
And I think the part that is unfair to Steve is I don't think anyone expected Halliburton to be a 2-year player. I don't think anyone expected him to blow up that fast.
Yep.
So he recruited a guy that only got an offer from UNI, and he was a gem.
Yep.
And he looked like the type of guy that would be a 4-year Big 12 Player of the Year. And he went to the NBA, which is a good thing.
Yep.
It's good for recruiting, but it also leaves you with nothing. But I don't really want to talk about Iowa State anymore because they're just not really fun to talk about. They don't really have anyone.
They're not relevant as they used to be. But
they've got a few guys coming back next year, but they're going to be fighting to win games against low-level teams next year unless they get a huge transfer.
Yeah.
But next we can move on to, do we want to go with Drake or Iowa first?
Drake.
So Drake is arguably the best story in college basketball this year. 17-0, first in the Missouri Valley, actually ranked 25th this week in the AP poll. Their signature win, I would say, is on the road at K-State. That's actually I did watch that game. They also beat South Dakota and Air Force, but with the pandemic year, they're not going to play as many Power 5 teams, and the Missouri Valley is kind of in a down year.
Yeah, and I think the team in third right now is Missouri State, and they got a couple wins against them. They went there, I think, or no, maybe they came. I don't know, but I know they beat them twice. They haven't met with Loyola. I think that'll be their make or break, 2-game series. So if they can win those 2 games, then I mean, I don't know how you can look past them at that point.
No, because Loyola right now is 15-3. They've only lost 1 conference game.
Yep, and Loyola and Drake could be, if those two, continue. Maybe they split and then they win out and then meet in the Missouri Valley Championship. I think both of them will make the tournament.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, if the Missouri Valley should be a 2-bid league this year, and I think it should.
It should, yeah, and I think if Drake goes out, I mean, with 1 loss and going into our Arch Madness is what they call it. If they go in with 1 loss and then lose early in that tournament, I still think they get a bid. I don't see how, if they don't win it, then I think 2 teams will make it.
So there's the Ohio Valley Conference, which is actually where Steve Prohm came from. It's Murray State and Belmont. Those are consistently the two best teams in that conference. And there was one year where Murray State went undefeated through the regular season, but lost in the conference championship to Belmont. They got left out.
Really?
But I think there's a different. I think the Missouri Valley, the kind of like the Power Five, especially this year, there's tiers. Like the Big 12 and Big 10 are on a different tier than like the ACC and the Pac. I guess the Pac-12 is probably on the tier of like the Missouri Valley with how bad it is. And I think the Missouri Valley is consistently one of the best mid-major conferences.
I would agree.
Because UNI has made a Sweet 16, and Loyola Chicago made the Final Four.
Yep.
Wichita State came from the Missouri Valley, was in the Final Four, Elite Eight. So I think the Missouri Valley gets a little more respect, and I would hope, well, obviously I'm going to be cheering for Drake to win the Missouri Valley Championship, but if for some reason Loyola does win it, I would hope both schools get in.
Yeah.
Drake still has to win out their remaining games. They still have 2 games against Valpo, Loyola, Chicago, Evansville, Bradley, and UNI. So those are all going to be, it's college basketball. They're all going to be tough wins.
I'd agree.
And finally, we can talk about Iowa, who I'll let you go on about them.
So they got a big win last night. I was able to watch most of the game. I was cut short with about 8 minutes left. I had to keep track on my phone because we had to go to tennis practice. But, they pulled one out. I thought it was a game they should have won by more than they did. But granted, they lost to Indiana, and Illinois.
If they lost to Indiana, they have some huge problems.
And that gap from the Indiana game to Illinois game, they had about 8 days off. So, I mean, not saying that's an excuse, but it can play effect a little bit. And so to get a win against Michigan, who's only a good college basketball team, they're 2-7 in the conference right now, so they're struggling. But we got a win. We're still, I think we're tied for second. Well, I think Illinois is ahead of us now, so we're in third in the Big Ten standings. But we're right there. I think a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, I think I'll feel really good with. I really do think we should get 2. But it would feel really nice to get that 4th 1 seed, because I think Baylor and Gonzaga have locked theirs up, and I don't see Villanova losing any more games. So I think that's at 3. But then the 4th one is wide open to anyone.
Yeah, the 4th one I think right now is open to. Texas might have taken themselves out of it last night.
Yeah, they weren't in it. I think it was like
it's Michigan.
Michigan,
right now.
Yep. Okay, yeah, Michigan, and Iowa plays them like. It's either their last game of the season or it's their second to last. I know they played them in March.
And we've seen this with the Big 12 before, where Kansas has been the 4th seed going into conference championship weekend, but end up losing to Iowa State. Because Iowa State's beat them like 4 straight years, or not 4 straight, but the last 4 times they've played in Kansas City. So they get knocked off of the 1 seed into the 2 seed. So I have a feeling that we see something like that this year, where Michigan's probably going to be the 4th number 1 seed, but they're not going to be locked in necessarily.
I don't.
So they'll have to win the Big Ten championship to get there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But we got it. We aren't shooting. We have technically like 3 shooters on our team right now. If you look at, I'm not going to consider Garza's 3-point percentage is about 45%, but I wouldn't consider him a 3-point shooter. You know what I mean? Joe Weiskamp will hit an open shot if it's there, but if he's contested, his shot is so slow that it's hard. When he's contested, he never really makes the 3-point shot. And then CJ Frederick and Jordan Bohannon haven't been, CJ hasn't even been really shooting the ball that much, and he didn't play against Illinois, and then he was back last night and only played about 12 minutes. I don't know if he played in the second half at all. I don't know. I didn't really watch, but and then Bohannon, how he is. He's really our make or break player. I mean, if he has a good game like he has, you've seen a few good games from him this year. We really click when he is on, and so I don't know. He gets a lot of hate. I mean, I've never been a guy to hate on him. I really do like him. I think he's a baller. I'll never forget. I think it was 2 years ago when he would hit game winner after game winner, and he was keeping us in that Big Ten conversation, and so that's just how he's been his whole career. So I'm not too worried about him, but his defense, and he's been turning over the ball a lot lately. He needs to be a better point guard and handle the ball better. But our bench played really well last night. We had 40 bench points, and so that's good. We're starting to play this freshman, Tony Perkins. I guess coaches really love him. He's really a defensive guy, but he's been, getting more confident and driving to the basket, getting to the free throw line. Those are the type of things that boost your confidence and help, and it's given us more depth on our bench. So those were some good things I saw.
Yeah, Iowa's got their next the rest of the season they have to play Ohio State on Saturday, which is obviously that's tomorrow.
Yeah,
they play Ohio State tomorrow.
Thursday, yeah, because we have a game on Sunday. Is that at Iowa or Ohio State?
It's at Carver.
Okay.
So that's obviously gonna be a really tough game. Ohio State's ranked 7th, but then they get kind of They play Rutgers at home. Rutgers still is dangerous.
Yeah, we barely beat them at Rutgers, but they were ranked 14th. They kind of once we beat them, they kind of hit a little downfall.
So they should beat Rutgers, and then they go to East Lansing to play Michigan State again. But then after that, they play at Wisconsin, which is Iowa in any sport pretty much always struggles going up to Madison.
Yeah.
They get to play pretty much their one bye week of the whole season. They get to play Penn State at home, and then they have to go to Columbus to play Ohio State, to Michigan, and then finish at home against Wisconsin. So it's going to be the Big 10 and Big 12 are very similar this year, where you don't really get a game. You might get a game off every now and then. Everyone gets to play Iowa State or Penn State, but you don't really get 2 games off in a row. So it's going to be a grind for the Hawkeyes rest of the way.
We don't get to play. I don't know. I know our game against Nebraska got postponed. I'm not sure if that has gotten made up or if it's going to get made up, but that would obviously be another game that we'd want to play. But with COVID and not allowing fans, there's no home court advantage. Mm-hmm. It really takes a significant fall. That's not really a thing anymore because, fans play a huge part in that. And, obviously you're used to your home court and sleeping in your own bed or dorm or whatever. But it's not really. It doesn't really make a huge difference.
Yeah, all it is it's really just about the travel, which I would say maybe plays a. If we're talking about Vegas odds, usually home court, depending on it, would be on average 3. So if it's Duke, it's probably 5 or 6. But for the average team with a good atmosphere, it's usually about 3. This year, it starts off at 0, and you probably get the point just for not having to travel, and then maybe a half point for the rims and for just kind of the background that you're used to. But other than that, there's not really that much of a home court advantage.
Yeah, so it gives obviously the home team a less advantage, but a road team, you can't say, oh, we lost to this team on the road. Well, you did. I mean, you didn't. There's no people there.
It's not the same excuse that it used to be.
Yeah, so it's just like playing a basketball game in front of no one. It's almost like pickup basketball. I hate to say it, but obviously it's not. The competitiveness and the intensity is amped up way higher, but you're not playing in front of anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So your bench has to provide energy and coaches, and I mean
it's a different season.
Yeah,
for sure.
it is, and it's gonna be. It really proves who's a better basketball team. Because obviously, personally, if Iowa State has fans at that game last night, they probably will win.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Hilton in itself is usually worth about 5 points.
Yeah, and they're always going to – it's always packed. It's just how Iowa State – and I truly think they'd have a few more wins, if they could have fans. But
I think they might have beaten West Virginia with fans, and I would hope they would have beat K-State with fans.
Yeah.
But nonetheless – should we talk about March just a little bit?
Yeah, let's.
I think Iowa is built extremely similar to what Hoiberg did, not with his Royce White teams, but with George Niang teams.
George Niang.
I think that pretty much every single night when Iowa State had Niang, you could go out there and expect just 22 points.
Yeah, we know what we're going to get from Luka every game.
So Iowa knows that they're going to get probably 28 or 30 from Luka every game at least. But outside of that, the team kind of lives and dies by the 3, which, as we saw against Northwestern, they won by 23 points. But you can also see what happened against Indiana where you go cold and lose by 12. And that's what Iowa State did for so long, where they just blew their way through the Big 12 tournament. They beat Kansas. They were down 18 and they beat Kansas by 10 in the championship, but then came out and lost to UAB.
Yeah.
So
that.
I think Iowa's got a similar opportunity where they could, if they catch fire, they could make the Final Four and not beat any team by less than 10, but they could also lose in the second round.
Yeah. Our bench. I don't remember your guys' benches that year, but I remember you'd only bring like 2 guys off, right?
Yeah, the year they lost to UAB,
it was like Deontay Burton.
Every single player that played in that game has played in the NBA outside of one, because it was the starting 5 of Monte Morris, Naslong, Matt Thomas, Niang, and Dustin Hogue, and then it was like Jameel McKay, Bryce DeJean-Jones, and that was it. Yeah. So everyone but Jameel McKay played in the NBA. Our
bench, we don't have a guy, like we have one guy that can go in off our bench and penetrate the basketball, and that's Joe Toussaint. You have all these other guys that are, Jack Nunge, he's better. He's been playing better. He hasn't been shooting the ball very well, but he made a couple threes last night. But that's sometimes you see it every few games where our bench, Fran will keep him in there forever because they really do. They provide an energy. They really play hard on defensively, and our starters aren't great defensively. You got Jordan Bohannon, he's not very good, and Luka is not that good on defense either. And so when our bench comes in, it's more of a defensive thing. But you see, that's when the shooting, the scoring goes down a little bit because we're not, we don't have that guy that like Luka or Joe or CJ that can score, when they want to score.
And I would almost, just because I watch a lot of NBA, I watch a lot of the Nuggets. The Nuggets are kind of the same way, where their starting lineup isn't going to lock down on defense. And usually the starters are going to get taken out of the game like up 5 or 6. But what happens when they come out is what dictates the entire game. And I was watching the Iowa game last night. I was watching that and Iowa State at the same time. And Iowa was up 2 and took all the starters out, but their bench went on a run and gave them like a 12-point lead.
Yep.
And that's really what's going to dictate the season, because with the Nuggets, there's been times where they've put the bench in up 6 and the bench comes back in, and just like that, Jokic is down 14 and he did nothing to contribute to that. So it's really going to come down to the bench and the shooting for Iowa in March, which that's what's the difference. I genuinely believe that at their best, Iowa can play with Gonzaga and Baylor, but with Gonzaga and Baylor, there's no question marks.
Yeah,
you know that they're gonna
come out.
They're gonna do what they do every single game. Yep. But with Iowa, there's kind of those valleys, just like I've seen way too much with Iowa State.
I agree. I 100% agree.
So I think we are going to come back with some NBA MVP talk in just a bit, but before that, I say we go with song By the Way by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Enjoy the break, and we will be back in just a second.
Standing in line to see the show tonight, and there's a light on, heavy glow. By the way, I tried to say I'd be there, waiting for Danny the girl is singing songs to me beneath the marquee. Overload. Stick knife, car chop, con job, okay. Skin that flick, she's such a little DJ. Get that quick, my street, but on the freeway. Turn that chick to make a little leeway. Beat that nick, but not the way that we play. Dog town, bloodbath, ribcage, soft tail. Standing in line to see the show tonight, and there's a light on, heavy glow. By the way, I tried to say I'd be there, waiting for. Blackjack, dope deal, flashback. Hot top. Standing in line to see the show tonight, and there's a light on, heavy glow. By the way, I tried to say I'd be there, waiting for Danny the girl is singing songs to me beneath the marquee. Oversold. By the way, I tried to say I'd be there, waiting for. Standing in line to see the show tonight, and there's a light on, heavy glow. By the way, I tried to say I'd be there, waiting for Danny the girl is singing songs to me beneath the marquee. Oversold. By the way, I tried to say I know you from before. Standing in line to see the show tonight, and there's a light on, heavy glow. By the way, I tried to say I'd be there, waiting for.
We are back. This is the Untitled Sports Show. I think I've changed the name every time. It went
Yeah.
from unnamed to
Unknown.
unknown.
Now untitled.
Untitled. We're going to have a name for you next week, I promise. But as always, I'm with Aaron Price. I'm Jake Brend. We talked a lot of Super Bowl as needed. It's the Super Bowl. It's the biggest sporting event of the year. And then we talked a lot of Iowa college basketball. But now we're just going to finish it off with some NBA talk. And NBA has been... When I was growing up, I never watched the NBA. I would watch like the finals, and that was
Yeah.
about it. And that was really until like about 2013 or 14, until I got into 2K.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got into 2K, I started to love the NBA. And now
Yep.
I probably watch more NBA than any other sport
Really?
outside of football.
Yeah, I would probably agree to that.
I
Yeah,
think I
watch
watch
way more football, but
I'm more likely to watch a random NBA game than a random college basketball game.
mm-hmm.
So
I would agree.
I love talking NBA. And today we're gonna start it off. I think we're only gonna have time for MVP talk. We can get into more next week. But who are your MVP frontrunners right now?
I would have to go with Joel Embiid. No particular order, but LeBron James. He's got to be in the talk every single year. Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and those are probably, and then Kawhi Leonard. I would go. I'm a guy with, if your team is really good and you're the best player on your team, you got to. I feel like you deserve to be in the talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't. Maybe Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if he's really been posting that quality stats, but they're 16-5. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
someone's
the Jazz. When we talk about just like our most surprising teams, the Jazz look really good.
Yeah, that was my most surprising team on the good side.
And I don't think they were that surprising to me, just because I saw how they dominated the Nuggets in the playoffs last year when they were up 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Jordan Clarkson is playing at the level that he's playing at right now, they are one of the best teams in the NBA.
Uh-huh.
And he's easily my pick right now for Sixth Man of the Year, just
Yep.
because he's one player that I wanted the Nuggets just to like throw a bunch of money at, just to get him away from the Jazz, because whenever they play him, he kills them.
Mm-hmm.
But the Jazz look really good. But I'll get into my MVP frontrunners, and actually my number one, I promise it's not biased, it's Nikola Jokic. So they went on a 5-game road trip last week. They beat the Suns twice. I think they beat the Suns twice, Mavericks, Heat, and then they lost the Spurs. And there's a video of Jokic kicking a chair after they lost to the Spurs because he was so mad that they lost to a team that they were better than.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how much of Jokic or the Nuggets you watch, but he sometimes just has that thing where he goes out and just looks like he doesn't care, even though he knows that he's the best player on the court. And he'll go out and just score like 9 points and 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He hasn't done that much this year, But he did the total opposite when they played the Jazz. He had 47 points and 12 rebounds, and they beat the Jazz coming off of a 12-game win streak, and they just dominated them. And when Jokic is playing like he wants to win every game and when he wants to win the MVP, I think by definition this year he's been the most valuable, just because I could argue that the Nuggets, right now they're 12-8, which is a respectable like 4 or 5 seed, but I could argue that they could be like 3-17 without him. That's how good that he's been.
Yeah, and I think that's what people don't understand. It's not the best player in the NBA that wins this award, because otherwise LeBron would win it every year. He's the best player in the NBA. It's the person who's most valuable to their team at the time. So like you said, Nuggets playing without Jokic, what would their record be? You know what I mean? I
don't know if they win a game without Jokic.
And that's why I'm saying, like, just quickly back to NFL, if Rodgers isn't on the Packers, they don't win a lot of games. But if Mahomes is on the Chiefs, they're probably going to still go 10-6, 11-5.
No, you're totally right about that. So right now, my front runner, he's probably not the media's front runner just because the Nuggets aren't exactly that big of a brand, and he's not I guess he's flashy, but he's not flashy in the way that ESPN likes it.
Yeah, they're like, aren't they like just a little bit above 500 right now?
Yeah,
anyway?
they're 12-8.
Okay.
So if they're 15-6, it might be a different conversation.
Yep.
But Jokic would be my front runner. My second is LeBron. I mean, he's 36 years old and he's still the best player in the league. Yeah. That's just absurd. He's shooting over 40% from three for the first time in his career. He's shooting 41%, which just shows that he just adapts.
Yeah, he's always there's something. It's like Michael Jordan. There's something that's pushing him every single night. And he has not taken as many, breaks or quote unquote rest games as he did last year. I mean, he is playing every game that he, can. And it's really good for the NBA. I love it. I love when teams do that. I hate when they rest their star players.
I can't stand it. And that's why I won't even discuss Kawhi as an MVP candidate. Just because I don't want to reward players for load management.
I think he's been playing most of his games this year, besides the fact him and Paul George I think they were in COVID protocols, so they had to sit out a few games. But I mean, Kawhi, they're like 15-5 right now, and he's not playing. I mean, he's just playing at a good MVP level, but I don't think he's the MVP. I put him in the race because their team's doing good and he's playing well, but they could probably win some games without him.
Yeah. And you mentioned him. We had the same exact top three. It sounds like I had Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy that the MVP race is 2 centers.
Oh, I know.
It's like the 80s all over again.
Yeah, I saw a stat today. This is the first time since 2006 that 2 centers won Player of the Month, and that was, can you guess who they were?
Would it have been, is Tim Duncan counted as a center?
No.
So it would have been Shaq? No.
Nope.
No, not Shaq.
Dwight Howard and Yao Ming.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's
they were the last 2 centers then to win Player of the Month in both Western and Eastern Conference.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think I like that because the NBA, you very well could have made the argument the year where Steph won his first MVP and Harden was up next, that the NBA was just going all guards.
Yep.
Because that year there wasn't really a dominant big man.
No.
Anthony Davis was still kind of up and coming.
Yep. And you had Boogie Cousins.
But like the majority of the star power in the NBA came from the backcourt. And now this year having Jokic and Embiid and then LeBron's a point forward, Anthony Davis is probably in the top 5 or 6 as far as MVP goes. Giannis Antetokounmpo's 7'1". Kevin Durant's huge. So the game, although it's still adapting to kind of a more perimeter game, it's still nice to know that there's some really good big men. And they're not traditional big men either. Jokic is unlike anything that the NBA's ever seen. He's a pass first, but also can score whenever type guy. Joel Embiid's probably closer to the traditional center that you're used to. But he's still almost a point center in itself too.
Yeah, it's crazy to see, like, both of those guys can run. I mean, Jokic can run the point guard, Embiid a little bit, but you see Embiid every once in a while going coast to coast, handling the ball. He's like dribbling between his legs and then pulling up for a 3. Embiid does that. Like, that's not your traditional center. That's not what the center position is known for, but they're centers.
And I think it makes basketball more fun.
It does, yes. To show off your talent like that is insane. It's to be 7'1" and to be able to have handles like that and instincts like that, it's incredible.
And as much respect as I have for like Karl Anthony Towns or even DeAndre Ayton, James Wiseman, those are more of the traditional centers.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert,
but they're not really going to do anything when it comes to wanting to talk about them.
Yep.
When it comes to their game, you're like, yeah, they're efficient around the rim and they grab a lot of rebounds and block shots. But that's about all you can say about them.
They're not. That's like, and I'm not saying it's natural, but it's like that's your traditional 7-footer. Like if you're 7 foot, you have a good chance of making the NBA. It's not. You don't see them trying to expand their game like Jokic and Embiid are doing. Like they're putting in effort, and maybe they are. I shouldn't say that they're not trying to expand their game, but they're not showing it.
That they're just not as talented as Jokic. I think LeBron is the smartest basketball player of all time. There's the videos of him where he recites a play from like the middle of the second quarter where nothing even happened, and he's like, he just says like the exact play that happened, exactly what the other team was doing, and everyone is like, how did he remember that? But I think behind him, Jokic might be the second smartest player in the NBA, just with how it's been crazy. I've been reading a lot of articles about it. Other teams they can't double team him anymore because
you can't.
He will, as long as Gary Harris and Will Barton and Monte Morris and even Jamal Murray, you could throw him in there now. As long as those guys are making their shots, you can't even. You could almost argue that you can't put anyone on Jokic because he's so good of a passer.
Yeah, you wouldn't. He doesn't really like. He doesn't like show it. Like when I watch Jokic play, it almost feels like everything just seems slower. He slows the game, kind of like Luka. He's just slowing and playing down. You see, there's few like Paul George is like that. He slows. He just has a slower pace to the game. Same with Luka, and really same with Jokic. I mean, Jokic is. You see it all the time. He's just his moves don't look like. How is he scoring? And it's incredible.
He's honestly Luka Garza on it.
Yes, I was going to say that. Yeah,
where Garza beats people with his footwork.
Yep.
Like it's some of the best footwork that I've ever seen. It's unreal. And Jokic does the same thing with his footwork, but he adds another element by being probably the smartest player in the game at the moment.
Yep.
And that's really what makes him dominant.
Yep, I agree.
Well, we just hit the hour mark, and it is 3:00 here in Iowa, so we are going to sound off. I'm glad that you were able to join us for today's episode. We're going to have a name for you next week, and we might even have some more time so we can talk a little more sports. But for Jake Brend and Aaron Price, we want to thank you guys for listening to this week on the Unnamed Sports Show.